As if it wasn't clear enough already that this administration is eager to violate human rights, we've got a new round of reporting showing just how far they're willing to go. My name is Brittany Page, and this is the Page Perspective. A brief shout out and hello to my new subscribers. Many of you found me through one of my recent videos on Donald Trump's executive order promoting the use of involuntary commitment and arrest for people experiencing homelessness. But he's going even further now. I've talked extensively about the Supreme Court decision in Grants Pass v. Johnson, which gave the green light to cities to criminalize the unhoused by instituting camping bans where the homeless can be ticketed or arrested for sleeping outside, even when they have nowhere else to go. And while Donald Trump's recent executive order gave us more of a sense of where all this is headed, ProPublica's Corey G. Johnson is out with a new investigative report further illuminating the plans here. Quote, Trump administration halted lawsuits targeting civil rights abuses of prisoners and mentally ill people. And in it, Corey writes, quote, the Trump administration has halted litigation aimed at stopping civil rights abuses of prisoners in Louisiana and mentally ill people living in South Carolina group homes. Louisiana's prison system has kept thousands of incarcerated people behind bars for weeks, months, or sometimes more than a year after they were supposed to be released, records show. And the DOJ accused South Carolina of institutionalizing thousands of people diagnosed with serious mental illnesses, sometimes for decades, rather than provide services that would allow them to live in less restricted settings, as is their right under federal law. Federal judges temporarily suspended the lawsuits in February at the request of the states and with the support of the DOJ. Now, this is the cruelty that we expect from this administration, but it's important that we keep our eye on the ball here because every action taken by this administration displays to us their values and the depths of the depravity they're capable of. It isn't just people with mental illness or people who are incarcerated either. Trump's Department of Justice has dropped investigations into various police departments across the country who have been accused of misconduct and abuse. They've dropped lawsuits designed to fight racial discrimination in voting, among many other things. Donald Trump is not interested in protecting those with the least amount of power in our society. He's interested in protecting himself and the wealthiest, most powerful people that he's allied himself with. So not only does he want to punish those experiencing homelessness with arrest and involuntarily hospitalizing them, but he's not interested in litigating the human rights abuses experienced by people who are involuntarily hospitalized or incarcerated. And maybe some of this is nebulous. Maybe you're looking for a specific example. What exactly are we talking about here in Louisiana and South Carolina with these civil rights abuses and the lawsuits designed to stop them being on hold? Reading again from ProPublica, quote, in the case of Louisiana, the Justice Department issued a scathing report in January 2023 about the state confining prisoners beyond their sentences. The problems dated back more than a decade and remained widespread, the report said. Between January and April 2022 alone, more than a quarter of everyone released from prison custody was held past their release date. Of those, 24% spent an additional 90 days or more behind bars, the DOJ found. More than a quarter of everyone released from custody was held beyond their release date, with about a quarter of those spending 90 days or more in prison. This is abhorrent. And Corey Johnson then tells the story of a man who was held for 337 extra days in confinement while also being misclassified as a sex offender. And he's now traumatized after this ordeal, understandably, especially because his mom died when he was being held past his release date for nearly a year. His car was repossessed. He says his reputation was ruined, of course. And to think there are people right now in this exact situation who are still being held in prison beyond their release date, possibly misidentified as something that they are not, while their families desperately fight to get the situation corrected. And Donald Trump comes in and says, no, let's stop fighting for a remedy here. And What about South Carolina? Reading again from ProPublica, quote, after years of lawsuits and complaints, a DOJ investigation determined that officials illegally denied community-based services required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and a 1999 Supreme Court decision to over 1,000 people diagnosed as seriously mentally ill. Instead, the state placed them in group homes that failed to provide adequate care and were overly restrictive, the department alleged. Kimberly Tissot, president of the disability rights group ABLE South Carolina, said it was common for disabled adults who were living successfully on their own to be involuntarily committed to an adult group home simply because they visited a hospital to pick up medicine. Tissot, who has inspected hundreds of the adult facilities, said they are often roach-infested, soaked in urine, lacking in adequate medicine, and staffed by untrained employees. Her description mirrors the findings of several state and independent investigations. In some group homes, patients weren't allowed to leave or freely move around. Subsequently, their mental health would deteriorate, Tissot said. Quote, we have had people die in these facilities because of the conditions, said Tissot, who worked closely with the DOJ investigators. Scores of sexual abuse incidents, assaults, and deaths in such group homes have been reported to the state, according to a 2022 federal report that faulted South Carolina's oversight. And Donald Trump's Department of Justice says, not a priority. Fixing this, not a priority. In fact, we want to scale up the involuntary hospitalizations and arrests. And we're not interested in addressing the civil and human rights abuses occurring in these facilities. The power of the federal government is mighty. When under the microscope and facing federal intervention, states are put on notice that they need to clean up their act. Without that oversight, without that intervention, these conditions continue unchecked and people suffer. So inevitably, when I do these videos, people come into my comments, commenting with glee about the possibility of people being thrown into institutions. And I have to say, as a licensed therapist who has worked in psychiatric hospitals, I've seen the wide array of people who experience involuntary hospitalization. Many people would not think that they would find themselves in that situation. But because of various life events and struggles or genetic predispositions, they do find themselves in that situation. And what would you want for yourself or your loved one? An abusive environment where you're disregarded like a piece of trash? No, you would want your rights and the rights of your loved ones protected. Don't wait to be personally impacted by this to start caring. Listen as the Trump administration continues to reveal its priorities. They're telling us daily what they value, and it is not human rights. What do you think? Call and leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 202-656-1509 or send an email to info@thepageperspective.com. You can support my work by becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below for as little as $1.99 a month or by going to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Follow me on social media at Brittany E. Page. And as always, thanks for being here. Take care, and I'll see you next time.